Hello, my name is Denise Johnson, and I am the project coordinator for substance use disorder and mental health issues for people who are deaf, hard of hearing, and deaf-blind throughout the state of Wisconsin. I work at Independence First in Milwaukee, and I also collaborate with all of the independent living centers across the state. Today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about how to communicate with individuals who are hard of hearing. First, I'll talk about some characteristics common to people who are hard of hearing. When I use the term hard of hearing, I am referring to someone who has a mild to moderate hearing loss with or without the use of a hearing aid. Typically, people in this population do not rely on sign language as their primary language, but instead use spoken English. They also will tend to rely on the use of residual hearing, speech reading, and speaking for themselves. And that speech is typically quite clear. When it comes to getting a person who is hard of hearing's attention before you communicate with them, the first thing you can try is to just call their name. If that's not effective, you have two other options. The first is to give a short wave in their field of vision to see if you can catch their attention visually. If that doesn't work, you can also tap them lightly anywhere on the arm between the shoulder and the elbow. So just a light tap should do it, and then you will have their attention. Now, it's important to remember that lip reading is not an exact science. Even though a person who is hard of hearing typically has a mild to moderate hearing loss, it is very likely that they may still struggle with trying to read your lips or speech reading. The reason behind this is that 75% of sounds are not visible on the lips, which then leaves them only access to 25% of information. The reason for this is that many words resemble other words on the lips, and that makes the process of speech reading very challenging. One technique you can employ when working with someone who is trying to read your lips is to rephrase your statement. So if your first attempt to communicate has not been successful, you can say the same message but choose different words, and that might help your communication go more smoothly. Another pitfall when communicating with someone who is hard of hearing can be an inappropriate response to your question. That can be a signal to you that the person may have misheard you or not heard you, and rephrasing would be an appropriate option in that event as well. Remember that when a person who is hard of hearing communicates and uses these techniques as far as lip reading and listening, that can be very fatiguing to the eyes and can be very fatiguing mentally. So it takes a lot out of a person to communicate in this way. Another thing to keep in mind is that men who have facial hair can have a unique challenge when someone is trying to read their lips. Especially any facial hair that obscures that upper lip will block basically half of what the person is trying to read. One option in this case is for the person to go ahead and trim his mustache. Or if that's not an option, the next step would then be to bring in an appropriate accommodation. Examples of this include oral interpreting, communication access to real time or CART, using a computer to write notes back and forth, texting back and forth, or simply writing back and forth with paper and pen. Please feel free to take advantage of all of the video resources available to learn how to work better with different communities, including those who are hard of hearing. Thank you for watching.